It's been a year since the Crew 1 just died. Oh, actually, it was taken from us. And I am sure you've seen the headlines. Boom, 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 boom. All of them talking about the fact that, yes, they are reaffirming this, that we do not own our games. And to them I say, you're talking a load of shit. There's a lot to this, but basically it's a lot of lawyer speak, which usually amounts to a lot of BS. And I'm gonna be completely real with you here. Anything that lawyers generally say is to do what they're paid to do. Get things thrown out. In this case, Ubisoft claims that players should have no expectation that they were purchasing unfettered ownership rights in the game. Now, this is a real problem, but to give you the simplistic version of it, these are just lawyers doing their job to essentially defend Ubisoft's pocket. That's the main thing happening here. Now, to be clear, this is not the overall stop killing games thing. This was actually a couple of players of the game, obviously Americans, that kind of thought they had a bit of an idea of what they could do to go against Ubisoft and tell them that we have been stolen from. But that's just it. The problem with any specific games, music, TV shows, media, software in general is that you do not own the software. That's literally just fact. And the company that produces said software basically can do whatever the hell they want to do. When you buy software, a game or a piece of software like my video editor, DaVinci Resolve, it's quite frankly up to them. And I hate to be the person that brings you this information, but that's just the way it is. Not to say that I agree with it to every extent, and in a lot of places, there are protections to mean that basically you don't get completely ripped off. And those protections are super, super helpful. However, the overarching issue that I have with all of this is that I know for a fact that lawyers, politicians, whether that be MPs or hell, I don't know, your local council, I don't give a damn. None of them are of any age to consider the fact that that software, realistically, you should be able to play that and do with that whatever you like. But that's not the rules, my friend. The rules is that you are licensing the game in pretty much every situation. You don't own the game because realistically, you didn't make it. It all comes back, every single time, it comes back to some form of bollocks IP law that quite frankly should go in the damn bin. I'm kind of passionate about this topic, so I'm going to show you exactly how passionate. But what I'm trying to say is that what lawyers say isn't necessarily what the company always believes. It's just them doing their best to protect themselves and ultimately save them some money. As much money as possible, if not all the money. You might remember that Fergus himself said that there's going to be an offline mode for the Crew 2 and the Crew Motorfest, which essentially solves that issue of the games being completely shut down in the future for this game, the previous game, and the Crew 3, 4, whatever the next Crew game will be. This is not a light piece of work to do. This is actually quite a difficult process because the Crew, since the beginning, has been founded on a base of that everything it does, it pings to the server. It requests from the server. All the calculations it does currently in the server have to be moved to the game, and it is a lot of... Why did it pause? It is a lot of work to do that. That's why it is taking so long. And so in this one situation, we have won. Yes, we have won. I understand the argument, and I completely understand because the Crew 1 is my absolute favorite, and we will no longer be able to access that officially. There is a project that's being worked on by a third party, but they have done what they can to make me feel at ease of being happy playing this game a heck of a lot more again. Did I expect the Crew 1 to be shut down? I'm gonna be honest, I don't really know. I don't know if I thought about it. I kind of hoped a situation like this with the Crew Motorfest would have happened, but unfortunately it didn't officially. But since the Crew 1, more and more games are once again returning to an always online format. And that is incredibly infuriating. Let's just pull up another example of a similar situation with lawyers just talking out of their asses. Can you find me a similar example from another publisher?
Okay, here's another example. In 2008, a lawyer for Electronic Arts defended their always online DRM for Spore, stating it was necessary to protect their intellectual property and prevent piracy. They argued that it was a common practice in the industry and that most players understood the need for it.
Not sure you'll find many players that understand the need for it at all. There's other examples like SimCity. SimCity was a game that really did not need any online connection whatsoever, but they defended it in the exact same way. Unfortunately, a lot of these suits just get thrown out because, quite frankly, the lawyers and whoever else is involved in the situation, the legal system, have no fucking idea what to think about when it comes to software. They ultimately are paid by these businesses to ultimately mean that you will own nothing and be happy. Okay, maybe you won't be happy, but that's why I'm here. Now, what can we do about this situation? Because, quite frankly, this should not be the case. I remember back in the day, if I had a disc for a game, I would be able to put it in. Today, I still, to this day, can go and do that. But a lot of Microsoft games on PlayStation or Xbox, for example, Forza Horizon 5 is not going to be available on disc on PlayStation. That is a calculated thought. There is a reason they are doing that. It requires an Xbox account for you to play a Microsoft game. These are things that are thought about for many particular reasons. However, how can we solve this? Buy physical media where possible. Now, hear me out. I am one that understands that the convenience sometimes is so much better with digital. It's actually always better. Over the last few years, I have been purchasing physical media new where possible on Blu-ray, 4K Blu-rays, and for older media, buying DVDs, for example, of Curb Your Enthusiasm, because I can't find it available. And I've actually not played these discs once, because what I do is I rip this media with my Blu-ray burner and put it onto some drives. And then I use Plex, and would you look at that, I have got a whole selection of movies and TV shows that I get to keep for the rest of time. And it's not just the movies and the TV shows. I do the exact same for music as well. I actually use a website called Qobuz to buy a lot of it, or Bandcamp. This is not an ad, this is just genuinely what I do. This is one of my hobbies. It's my special interest right now. But it's actually why for games recently, I've generally been focusing and moving from being primarily on PlayStation or Xbox or whatever to being on PC, because PC seems almost like that last little haven in where we can kind of make things work if people stop them working. Think about Test Drive Unlimited 2. Think about the Crew Unlimited project going on right now. These are things that ultimately sometimes make the PlayStation version work again, but I'm going to want to play it on my newest PC with a brand new graphics card running it at resolutions I couldn't dream of previously. And I can keep doing those things on PC, basically meaning that I will probably be able to play the game forever. Someone will make it work. Someone smarter than me. But I do want to say that I think it's incredibly important, however, to make sure that you do buy the media, because not just morally, because obviously I'm a moral person, if you really want to support and see more of the thing that you're paying for, or the thing that you're enjoying, you should what is going on? You should absolutely support it monetarily. So as I said, I buy things new, I buy things on Qobuz when it comes to music, and hell, I still use streaming services because of the convenience. But the fact of the matter is that these physical copies now allow me, and on PC buying games, they now allow me to enjoy these as long as I exist, which is kind of amazing. And also, they can't take them from my cold dead hands. Oh, piss. Now, it does bring you to the question, why? It really massively inconveniences us to not be able to play the media we want. It gives us a bad taste in our mouth about that company particularly saying things like this lawyer is saying on behalf of Ubisoft. Is it for the sake of control? Is it to push people to newer games? Reliance on new product to consume, buy, next one. Is it because it costs too much to make it both single player and multiplayer? I think it's maybe a combination of all those things. But I also think it's fair to give my point that a lot of games are designed from the base today. Oh my god, please go. I really can't say from the ground up. I don't want to say it. And it's getting worse in recent years. Like, look at your Fortnite. The Fortnite game would make absolutely no sense other than, you know, the original Fortnite. But the current Fortnite that people know and love and the current Call of Duty, most people weren't going to give a goddamn if those games were playable single player, solo, on your own, way later down the line. Who gives a goddamn? Like, that's who cares, right? But the problem is that then sneaks into a lot of other games. Look at Need for Speed 2015. That game has no reason, no purpose to be an always online game. Sure, there may be some offloading to server situations with some elements of the game, but quite frankly, I don't give a toss about that. I want to play my game. The issue is the blending of these situations and the excuses that arrive because of the benefits of, well, quite frankly, meaning that one day you won't have access to that game, so then inevitably you'll just buy the new one, right? That's the only thing that really sits in my head as maybe that's the primary purpose of this, is the idea that, say, for example, Apple is having this situation now where the MacBook M1s are so good. I've got an M2, and I actually won't upgrade from this unless you bring this color back, Apple. The planned obsolescence doesn't work realistically on something like this because they made it so good the first time. I'm now not buying a laptop every year like I did when it was Intel-based. That race was incredibly difficult for some reason. But then think about something like Helldivers 2. Is that a game you care about ever playing offline? Because quite honestly, the game is made to be an online game, right? Why would you want to play this offline? I mean, maybe I would. Maybe I want to play it locally. Maybe whatever I want to do with it, sure. But a lot of people today will look at this and be like, I don't give a damn. The idea of the game is that you play with friends. So if I can't play with friends, what's the point? And I think that's one of the biggest arguments that we've got to fight against here, is that there's a lot of innovation in the fact that this generation, and maybe the one before it, is seemingly the only generation that really started from a point of like, yeah, most people are online now. Like, properly online, so we can make games dedicated to this. The things that failed, like for example Mag on the PS3, god, massive action game, it just didn't work. So again, I'm conflicted on that point because I love innovation, I love new things, new buildings, new infrastructure, new is interesting to me. And so a game that wasn't possible before in the same way is now possible. That's a really cool experience. So how do we decide, who decides what should be a single-player playable offline game and what shouldn't? Should it be the developers, us, the politicians? Who's to say? It's an art piece, it's a media piece. It really does feel a little bit like a lost battle most of the time. Like, we can hardly expect MPs or Congress, or any form of politicians around the world to really decide what's what. The EU is probably our best hope in making a situation that is more consumer friendly, because I don't think there's necessarily a way that they're going to stifle innovation by doing something that at least says the game should be playable for the rest of this person's lifetime. I don't think that's a big ask, to be completely honest with you. That actually makes me remember something because of a rule in California. When you actually go to buy a game now, specifically a game that is not really a game you will keep for the rest of your life because it's a DRM and all that kind of crap. It says a purchase of a digital product grants you the license for the product on Steam. So it doesn't necessarily mean you are buying the game. You're not buying the game, you're buying a license to play the game. And that's how all games are these days. And quite frankly, it's how games have generally always been. The fact that it now kind of forces them to say that you're not actually going to keep this thing forever is a nice step in the correct direction, and I want to see more of that. So we got California, the EU. That's really all we've got. So we got to really push on them fellas, because they know what they're doing, ladies. They know what they're doing. But to basically give you some homework, as I mentioned, do think about buying that physical media. And again, you can make it so that it's convenient for you by ripping it to a Plex or keeping it stored. Again, follow the law. But, you know, for example, think about your own limits. If a DVD has been purchased by me and there's a 4K variant on the streaming service, I already purchased the media, you know, so if you make something available, quite frankly, I will buy it. But if you don't make it available to purchase, I think I'm still gonna get it. And I think that's insanely fair. Again, I support things I really care about. But the best thing you can do is put your money where your mouth is. Stop supporting games that pull off these practices and really show them. It's really obvious that that is a superpower that we have in this industry, in the games industry is especially. A lot of companies will listen to stuff. Look at when PlayStation tried to force PSN for everything. They did it the wrong way by trying to make it so that games you had all of a sudden need the PlayStation access. That's not good. That's not nice. We spoke up about it. they got rid of it. Yes, they've now brought it back, but they brought it back as optional, and they are rewarding you for instead signing up for the account. So they've improved that situation based on what it was, because quite frankly, I think it's fine to have a PlayStation account on a game that is a online game with crossplay and blah blah blah. It just kind of makes sense. But in a situation of games not coming on the disc and stuff, that's not okay. So you should stop supporting those games in that way. And again, realize that you are heard. If you've got some actual genuine point, you know, the Assassin's Creed stuff was just loaded. It was just fucking stupid. But in a situation of The Crew, yeah, our game was taken from us and the community was rightfully pissed. Well, turns out that Ubisoft listened to that straight away. Yeah, not with The Crew 1, because it was a little bit too late because of the licensing situation. Basically, car manufacturers as usual. Oh my god, oh my god, oh my god, oh my god, oh my god. You will be heard if there are people passionate about it behind the project. And you might be surprised to find out that most people that work in an industry that constantly throws them in the bin, constantly pays them below what they're worth, constantly closes studios, even though the higher-ups are the cause for the incompetence of the release of always online and microtransactions in a game. Yeah, you gotta have quite a bit of fucking passion to stay in this industry, I tell you that. Disgusting.